every time I had to repot a plant that I bought from the nursery in the last few years, is I'd take it out of its previous container and look at the root ball, and all I saw were these funny little white granules in the potting mix. So I thought it was styrofoam, and I did even experiment, sort of get a slab of styrofoam, chop it up and mix it in my soil. But it was much, much later that I realized, because there was all this talk about perlite, and the gardeners were talking about perlite, that I realized that these little granules are actually perlite. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I had no clue what perlite was, how to use perlite, and its advantages in gardening. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Alice, and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. Let's go a bit deeper. What is perlite? Perlite is a volcanic rock. And basically what happens is that with this volcanic rock, it's heated to such high temperatures, and what happens in the end product are these funny little popcorn granules. Now, it comes in different sizes, so this is actually quite a fine perlite, but you do get larger granules that you can use. Once it's undergone this process, what happens to the granules is that they become water resistant. And also within the pebbles or perlite granule is that inside it forms little air pockets, which is actually why there's two reasons that it's actually the most appropriate thing to use when you're potting your plant. So with perlite, because as we understand is that because of the structure of its granule, it doesn't retain water. Water will always seep right through. But also the other thing is that because it has air bubbles, it's actually really good, because the roots of the plant need the air, which has the oxygen, which actually increase the production of its roots and everything. Plants need oxygen. So once you do introduce it into your potted plant, you get a well-draining soil, and at the same time you do get your air and your oxygen to feed the roots. If you compare perlite to other mediums like vermiculite, perlite is actually good for aeration of your soil and not for water retention, whereas vermiculite is actually totally different. It's absolutely the opposite to what perlite does in a potting mix. So the other mistake we make, which I used to make also before I started understanding what perlite was, I thought it was just a medium you introduce into your soil mix and it works for every single plant. Because now that we understand that perlite actually is more for aeration as opposed to water retention, is that then that medium, once you do introduce it into your potting soil, it's actually really, really good for your succulents, which don't like water close to its root, or your cacti. This is the sort of medium you would use, especially for those sort of plants. So there are many ways of using perlite. So I just thought the other day is here I have my mini anthurium, and the thing is that what I did pot it in was in bark, compost, very organic mixture, but I didn't put enough soil in there. Now what happens is that every second day I have to water it because it does dry out. But then I thought to myself, another way you could use the perlite is actually just put a thin film at the top of the soil. So in a way is that as I water, the soil will retain the moisture and not dry out so quickly. So I used it for this one method. Another method is that a few weeks ago we actually talked about the peace lily, and we did a propagation, a water propagation, which we'll link you to. But then you can actually do a hydroponic with perlite. So what I did is that I did take my peace lily, which was propagating in water, and soon to be propagated in soil once it does mature and the roots do well. But what you could use the perlite for is actually as a transition from water, put it into perlite as I've done here, and then once it does, the roots and everything mature, from here you move it now into your potted soil mix and let it flourish. So actually I've got one flower coming out of my peace lily, but it actually is a really good medium, especially for that sort of transition. If you're creating your potting soil and you want to get more aeration or really good drainage, I usually go these days with 80% soil and 20% perlite. We're talking volume here. I mix that up, and that is my mixture for my potting soil. However, if you need to do a potting soil for a plant that needs to really dry out before the next watering, you can increase your perlite mixture to maybe 30% and the rest as potting soil. Once you know what you're going to use your perlite for and the sort of potting mix that you require, there are certain soils that don't really work with perlite. For example, in Kenya we have the red soil, and the thing is that it is a slightly clay soil and it does get very compact. Now if I were to add like my perlite in there, it really wouldn't work, because first of all is the clay soil actually goes, once it does go compact, it really does surround those roots and it's difficult. And if you do add the perlite, it doesn't really work. But what you could add in it and introduce your perlite is have more things like introduce a bit more compost or introduce more organic stuff into that red soil, and then you introduce your perlite in order to make it much lighter, aerated and everything. So I hope I have given you some information regarding perlite, how to use it, and in this way you can fully utilize the benefits of perlite. So fellow gardeners, thank you so much for being with me in this channel today, and don't forget to like, to share, or subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to press that notification button so you're always notified, and we are on Instagram. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We do post other sort of different types of plants, and don't forget to DM us and also share your comments, and because we're all learning from each other, and I would love to know if you have good tips that I could follow. Please don't forget to do that, and we always do answer you back. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.